Welcome to the program. We appreciate you being with us. Let's get your reaction to Kamala Harris picking Tim Walz as her running mate. What's your take?
Well, listen, it's not surprising. Both Kamala and Tim Walz are hard left. They have radical left records, so it's a good pairing in one sense. They both represent the same thing. I actually thought the perfect illustration of just how terrible this pick was is within seconds of it coming out, Ilhan Omar sent out a tweet of her and Tim Walz arm in arm saying what a fantastic choice it is. This is a nod to the left wing of the Democrat Party. This is a nod to the open borders, to the abolish the police, the crazy side of the Democrat Party. Look, Tim Walz is the governor who let Minneapolis burn during the Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots, and Kamala Harris is the vice president who contributed to bail funds to bail out the criminals who were burning Minneapolis. So it's an amazing pairing. I got to say it's striking right now that as you and I are talking, Kamala Harris is on stage with Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, and Shapiro's got to be shaking his head because on any level, if you're looking at a swing state, you want a Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania. If you're looking at someone who campaigned as a moderate governor, you want a Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania. And they floated it. They were leaning towards it. If you're looking at who the donors wanted, they wanted Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania. And you know what happened? The pro-Hamas radical left of the Democrat Party said, no, you're not allowed to be Jewish and on the Democrat ticket. And I think that is a very sad day when the Democrats give a nod to the pro-Hamas wing. And if Josh Shapiro's name were Josh Smith, he'd be the VP nominee or named right now.
Before we go and talk about the stock market and the economy of Kamala Harris knows nothing about. Senator, but their plan is to run essentially solely on abortion. So let them talk about abortion, particularly in the state of Minnesota. And I brought this up. Minnesota is one of 7 states plus D.C. where this is how they like to refer to it, no limit on gestational duration, which means in Minnesota, signed by this governor, a woman can have an abortion up until the moment of birth. There isn't even a limit on the viability of a child when a child could live on his or her own, that abortion would not be illegal. Let them run on that, and somebody in the Republican Party ask that man in the debate what he has to say about that. How would that work at the 9-month? Because it's vile.
Well, listen, unfortunately, that reflects where today's Democrat Party is. That's the position of Kamala Harris. That's the position of Tim Walz. That's the position, sadly, astonishingly, of virtually every Democrat in the Senate and virtually every Democrat in the House, including my opponent who's running against me, Colin Allred, a left-wing Democrat running against me. Colin Allred, like Tim Walz, like Kamala Harris, they support unlimited abortion up until the moment of birth, in the 8th month and 9th month of pregnancy. And as you know, that's a radical position. Nationally, 9% of Americans agree with that extreme position. 91% of Americans say that's too much. In fact, a majority of people who call themselves pro-choice say abortion up till the moment of birth is too extreme, and yet that's where today's radical Democrats are.
That's where they're at. Senator Ted Cruz, stick right there with us. Don't go anywhere.
Stocks rebounding after 2 days of massive sell-offs, really 3. Thursday sucked too.
Our own Kelly O'Grady is live in studio with all of the latest. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Dagan and Sean. Great to be with you. Yeah, look, the markets lost steam on this turnaround Tuesday. They still finished up, but they had quite the sell-off in the final hour. Now, this came off, as you said, Dagan, a rough 3 days that included a 5% drop in the Dow and nearly the worst day that we've ever seen, rather, in the past 2 years for the S&P 500. So let's take a look at where we ended. You got the Dow up 0.75%, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both finishing up 1%. Look, globally, the markets rebounded as well. You had the Japanese Nikkei soared 10% after its worst day since 1987. I want to emphasize, though, these are just day-to-day moves. Couple reasons for the rebound. The turnaround Tuesday, it's kind of a psychological phenomenon we often see in the markets. You know, you've got a jittery Thursday, a hedge on Friday, then this all-out sellout on Monday. And then investors feel, well, hey, there's some buying opportunity, and you start to see that upswing on Tuesday. Second reason is some admission from the Fed presidents that rate cuts are coming. The emphasis we heard is we aren't in a recession, but we will act when needed, since the labor market is slowing. Now, clearly the market's like hearing that, even if the emergency rate cut looked less likely now. Before I go, I just want to show you some of the big beneficiaries, right, of that rate cut on the horizon. Big tech, your growth stocks, NVIDIA, Microsoft, both finishing up 4%, 1%. Look, we're going to see if this turnaround Tuesday can extend through the week, Dagan and Sean, or if the markets slip more into that correction territory after record highs for months and months. Back to you.
Kelly O'Grady, thank you. Appreciate it.
Senator Ted Cruz is still with us. Senator, if you, not you, but the American people elect Democrats again to the White House, all they know how to do is spend money. And spending money is what got us into this horrific economy in the first place. And now we're at $35 trillion, $2 trillion budget deficit just this year, and we're still headed toward a recession.
Well, Dagan, you're right, although I got to say, I think you're shortchanging the Democrats a little more. They do know how to do more than spend money. They also know how to print money, they know how to borrow money, they know how to raise taxes, and they know how to regulate the hell out of small businesses and destroy jobs. They're very good. They've really got the whole package, and I got to say, between Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, they've got expertise across the board in bankrupting the country. If you actually care about small businesses, if you care about jobs, if you care about working families being able to pay their bills and make ends meet, well, then electing Democrats is a terrible idea. But if you care about enriching China and making big tech oligarchs even richer and helping Mexican drug cartels, then vote Democrat all the way.
You know, Senator, again, I served in the Congress when you came in 2010, and Republicans do a good job of talking about how we want to cut spending or at least cap spending, but it becomes very challenging. And I think Democrats do a better job of getting elected and sticking to their principles. They may lose the next election, but we still have Obamacare. They lost on Obamacare, but we still have it. Do you think you're going to have a heartened Republican Party? Hopefully you guys take the Senate, Republicans keep the House. Do you think, though, that you're going to get real reform done because you have members of the Congress who have heart and passion to fix this country?
Look, Sean, I hope so. You're right. It can be frustrating to be a Republican. There are a lot of Republicans who run and they say one thing on the campaign trail and they do something different when they get in office. And I'll tell you what I tell every senator, every House member who gets elected. I say, look, just do what you said you would do.
Yeah.
Just whatever you told the voters in September and October you were going to do that in January. And to the Democrats' credit, they're better at that. They promise, as Obama did, to fundamentally change the country. They promise, as Biden did, to shut down oil and gas drilling. They promise, as Kamala Harris did, to ban fracking. And they follow through on their radical promises. What I can tell you is this. There are a lot of areas that I'm very confident if and when Republicans win, we'll see a massive change. None more important than our open borders. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have created this border crisis. They deliberately opened up our southern border to 11.5 million illegal immigrants. And I am absolutely confident if and when Donald Trump is reelected and we have a Republican Senate and a Republican House, we will secure the border, and we're going to do so in a matter of weeks. It's not going to take years. It will happen in January of next year. I also believe if Republicans win the White House, the House, and the Senate, we will cut taxes. The Democrats will raise taxes. The delta there is $6 or $7 trillion. It's a huge impact on taxes. And I'm also confident if Trump is reelected, we will end the regulatory war on small businesses and the war on energy. The Biden-Harris war on energy is driving up inflation in every family in America. In January, that's going to end as well.
No doubt.
And energy security is national security. Energy policy is our foreign policy.
Yes.
And that's why what's happening overseas in the Middle East is going on right now. Senator Ted Cruz, pleasure, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We know you have a race, Senator. Good
Thank
luck
you.
winning and coming back to the Senate. We appreciate you being on the bottom line.